as a mother getting that call that your son had
Well,
died?
actually, we didn't get a call. I tried to get a hold of him all throughout the day. And I knew the night before, I have a dispute with the coroner as to when Matthew died. And in some ways it doesn't matter, you know, and the point is I was afraid at a certain point, and he stopped responding. We were texting. He was telling me how desperate he was. He was telling me that he was going to kill himself. And I had been able to talk him off the ledge hundreds of times. But that night he stopped. And Rick had pneumonia, and I made him get out of bed, and we drove over to Matthew's house. I could see the lights on. He had a door pane in his door, and I could look through. I could see the bag of towels. I could see lights on, but he wasn't responding. He wasn't saying, like, go away, you know, don't, just go away, leave me alone. He was just not responding. It wasn't like him. So I lived all that night in terrible fear. I went through my Hope Box verses. I listened to my playlist of songs, and I went through that whole next day texting and him not responding, and he missed work, and he missed his workout, and by then the dread is building in me of he's done it, he's done it. But the problem was Matthew had let us know that he had a gun. He'd obtained it illegally, but he also said, if you try to take it from me, I will either kill myself, or I will, if you bring the police in, I will institute a death by, I will make them shoot me. And so there's like no good option that I could see. And mental illness does that. It puts families in these untenable situations in which you don't have any good choices. So I didn't know what to do. Do I try to break in? He's already told me what he'll do if I do. Not that he would hurt me, but, or if I call the police and try to get them, he's already told me what's going to happen. What do I do? All I need to do is wait. And so by 5 o'clock on Friday, April 5th, when I had not heard from him, and he'd missed his workout, and he'd missed work and hadn't let him know, I sent one more text that said, I'm going to have to call the police because I'm fearful of what's happened. Please just let me know. Just text, just do anything that lets me know you're still alive. And there wasn't. And so I felt, when I brought the police in the conversation, that I felt like that meant he had died. And so then we did bring the police over, and eventually within a few hours, and they got in his house, and they confirmed, you know, that he had taken his life. And so we didn't get the call. We stood in the driveway of his house waiting for the police to confirm what we were pretty sure had happened.
And your family, his siblings, your husband, how do you grieve through this loss that you kind of saw at points?
Coming.
Maybe
coming.
Yeah.
Rick said after Matthew died, this is the day that we prayed would never happen, but dreaded, you know, would. And we have all grieved differently. That's one of the things I've learned about grief is we're grieving as a family, but we're also grieving as individuals. There was nobody else on his earth. Nobody else on this earth was Matthew's mother. I was it. So I have that unique role. I grieve as his mother. There's no other dad besides Rick. Rick is grieving as his dad. He only had one sister. She's grieving as a sister. He only had one brother. He's grieving as a brother. And so we're grieving. It's a shared experience, but it's also a very individual experience. And so we've learned to let each other grieve in our unique role. Yes, there's the corporate part of where we're family. Our whole family changed, you know, in a second. The whole dynamic of the family changes. You know, it's like the constellation of a family changes. He was at the center because he was the weakest and the neediest one, and so we revolved, and now the center is gone, and so everything gets reorganized and the dynamic changes, and that's painful. It's hard. It's not easy. You go through a lot of stress and even conflict and grace for each other. But then it's very individual. We've each had our own questions, our own responses, and at the end of the day, you give each other a lot of grace. A lot of grace to grieve. Rick and I decided that we were going to grieve together. I appreciate this about my husband. I mean, if I hadn't loved him before, which I did, but I love him even more deeply now because of the way that he has approached me in our grief. And he said, look, I know it's going to be harder for me to express my emotions, but I'm just telling you, I'm going to grieve with you. Yeah. And so, Kay, and he's made good on this in these 5 years, we never have judged each other's grief. If I'm falling apart and need comfort, he never goes, how, really? Or how long are you going to feel this way? Or, we don't do that to each other. Even if we aren't feeling it in that moment, he might be the one crying at the kitchen table. And I'm busy and I'm tired. And it's like, oh, I don't want to feel this right now. But I walk over and I put my arms around him and I just hold him. And vice versa. We've chosen to grieve together. And I think that's why we're closer now than we've ever been. It's because we have chosen to walk through grief together. And we've chosen to walk with our kids. As a parent, I don't expect my kids to carry my grief. So as a parent, I help carry their grief and my own. It's not their responsibility to carry my grief, but I'm a parent, and it is responsibility of mine to help carry my kids' grief. It's the hardest work I've ever done. Grief is the hardest work I've ever done.